Hello and welcome to this inaugural edition of Inside MSY. My name's Warren Bell and it's my pleasure to serve as your host for this program emanating from the site of the all-new $1 billion terminal being built for Armstrong International Airport. It's my pleasure to have as my co-host for this journey Mr. Kevin Doliol. He is the Aviation Director for New Orleans International Airport. And Kevin, as a homeboy, native son, coming back to New Orleans after a lengthy career in aviation to preside over this project has got to be a thrill.
It's very true, and I am definitely a native son. Proud graduate of Joseph S. Clark Senior High School and Xavier University. When I finished at Xavier, I was working on the airline side of the industry and went to Atlanta with a major airline and moved over to airport management. And along the way, 40 plus years later, I've run 2 airports. I've consulted to a ton of airports around the country. And it's very special for me personally to be able to bring that experience that I've gained and the knowledge I've obtained over the years around the country to bring all of that to bear in a project of this nature in your hometown airport at this point in your career. That's special.
And especially at this point in the history of airports in New Orleans, because we need to acknowledge, folks, if you're listening in addition to watching, you can't help but hear the sounds surrounding us. The sights would also indicate to you what you know already. This is an airport still under construction, slated to open later this fall. But Kevin, I understand now when I've toured, when you say $1 billion project, you have to get your arms around just how much is involved.
That's true.
And it's a project that precedes your coming back home.
Right. That's
Aviation Board made the decision in 2013.
In 2013,
share that with us?
After studying a number of options to improve the airport, the decision was made to come to this side and build new on the opposite side of the airfield in 2013. It was the final decision. 3 years later, there was a ribbon cutting, and construction actually started in January of 2016. And here we're sitting 3 years later, about 95% through the project, a very complex project with a lot of complexities in the coordination between various contractors and tenants and their needs. So we've gotten here. We're close to the finish. But it's going to be, we're going to go full bore to the finish, and it'll be a very involved effort to ensure there's good coordination going forward to completion.
Some of which is going on even as we speak, because they're checking the PA systems, adjusting audio levels, testing fire alarm systems. We picked an interesting day to get here, I guess.
We did.
But it does illustrate this is a work in progress. But just like Rome wasn't built in a day, I would argue that, and I was around when the Superdome was dedicated, it seems to me that this is arguably the single biggest and most important construction project in Louisiana history. Is that an exaggeration?
Well, I'd like to say that. I think we could say that. It is a very significant project. It will have a big impact on our image through the nation. It's the first impression folks get as they travel into the city.
No doubt.
There was also a study commissioned some years ago that showed the airport, or labeled the airport, I think, as a disabler or something that discouraged additional convention traffic into the city. We're ridding ourselves of that image and that label, if you will.
Sure.
We'll now be a more critical, positive, forward-looking driving force in attracting more traffic into the city. And as we talk through this program over the next 30 minutes, we'll be able to point to different features or different things that have been added to the facility to make the travel experience much better.
Absolutely.
For visitors and locals.
Absolutely.